Welcome, everyone. So glad you're here to share in this series of virtual contemplative practices. We're celebrating the 35th anniversary of the Center for Action and Contemplation, and we're using selections from Richard's beautiful, short, little, but very rich book, Just This. And I'd like to read to you from page 12 in the book, the log removal process. Here is the mistake we all make in our encounter with reality, both good and bad. We do not realize that it was not the person or event right in front of us that made us angry or fearful or excited or energized. At best, that is only partly true. If you let the beautiful hot air balloon in the sky make you happy, it was because you were already predisposed to happiness. The hot air balloon just occasioned it, and almost anything else would have done the same. How we see will largely determine what we see and whether it can give us joy or make us pull back with an emotionally stingy and resistant response. Without denying an objective outer reality, what we are able to see and what we are predisposed to see in the outer world is a mirror or reflection of our own inner world and state of consciousness at that time. Most of the time, we just do not see it all, but rather operate on cruise control. Jesus, of course, was talking about this phenomenon in his famous line about calling out the speck in another's eye and not recognizing there was actually a log blocking our own. Many of you know that I help curate a podcast here at the CAC called Learning How to See. And I've been so interested in this reality of that Richard's talking about in Just This, that what we bring to our seeing really influences what we see. We don't just see what's there, we see who we are in whatever is there. I'm sure many of you have heard Richard quote a maxim that comes from the scholastic period in the Middle Ages. Quid recipitur ad modum recipientis recipitur. That which is received, seen, heard. That which is received according to the manner of the receiver. How we are, who we are, where we stand has this huge influence in how we see. And once it goes through the filter of our seeing, for many of us, that's what reality is. We're seeing this in our political world with conspiracy theories. And if you listen to this or that cable news channel, you live in different realities. And this weird, global psychological experiment is going on where we can get sucked into internet rabbit holes where everyone sees the way we see, everyone thinks the way we think, everyone feels what we feel and sees the world through that lens. And we can get farther and farther and farther away from actually making contact with reality. Now, I wish I could tell you that there's an easy 3-step or 20-minute process for guaranteeing that we're actually in touch with reality. I don't think it's that easy. In my most recent book, Do I Stay Christian?, I talk about the fact that language itself becomes a kind of lens. The language we use, the definitions we inherit, the assumptions that are behind them, all of these things have far greater effects on our seeing than we realize when we're young and naive or old and so set in our ways that we have a different kind of naivete. And so what I'd like to invite us to do in these 15 or 20 minutes of this set So I'd like to invite us, as we settle into silence, to be aware that there's all these little turbulences going on inside of us, inner conversations that are happening too fast for us to even be aware of. And a few of them pop into our consciousness and slow down enough that they become a sentence or a thought. But that we have so much going on, each of us, inside our complicated and many layered brains, that those conversations can have a far greater effect in how we see and even what we see. I talk about this, I teach about this, but I bump up against it constantly myself. I think in contemplation, we, in a sense, the act of slowing down and descending into our heart space, descending out of the rush and flurry of all those thoughts and reactions and scripts that are going on up here. What happens is that we're able to say what's real is not necessarily what I think. And so what I'm going to invite us to do in this time of silence is to try to hold an intention. Help me to see reality. You can utter it as a prayer as we begin. Help me to see what's really there. Help me not to have a log in my eye that's keeping me from seeing things that are there. Help me from not hallucinating, always seeing things that I want to be there or that I'm afraid will be there. And to just hold that little simple, deep, profound intention to see. And then when a distracting thought comes, you say, oh, there they are. There are those distracting thoughts that always can be keeping me from seeing what's there. And here's the irony. We'll either close our eyes or just look gently at a point in front of us. We won't really be looking with our eyes. We'll be paying attention to the inner lens, the inner eye, the inner seeing. And in the presence of God, we'll be asking for help, asking to have the lenses of our glasses clean, so to speak, so that we, when this time is over, will have strengthened our resolve to stay loyal to reality. So I invite you now to get your feet flat on the floor, to straighten your back. Just take 3 cleansing breaths as we begin. And if you'd like, you can repeat after me aloud or silently in your heart. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. I invite you now to let this simple prayer echo in your heart and among all of our hearts. Living God, help me see. Living light, help me see. Inner light, help me see. In loving you, help me love what is real. Amen. Thanks, everyone.
Friends, as we draw our time together to a close, let's take 5 more minutes just to appreciate some of that love and peace that we might have just experienced and offer it in prayer and intentions for healing. So first, you may have noticed a place inside yourself that is hurting, or a place inside yourself that's anxious, or maybe a little bit bruised, or maybe there's a little piece of you that's been acting up like your own inner problem child. I want to invite you to just take a moment and notice that part of yourself and hold that place or that piece of yourself in your heart and simply offer it love. Next, I encourage you to listen for a moment. Just listen for someone in your intimate family or social circle or community who's in need right now. As that person's name emerges in your heart, send them love and peace and prayer. Just for a moment. Now, friends, let's listen for someone in need in our greater community. Perhaps a coworker, or a fellow student, or a neighbor. Perhaps someone we've never even met personally, but we know is in need. Or maybe even someone who, for reasons that we don't know, is just showing up in our heart right now. As that person emerges, let's send them love and peace and prayer. Just for a moment. Now let's think of a larger need. Perhaps a hurt that wounds our greater community, or even our global community, or our planet. Whether an issue, or a conflict, or a crisis, whatever it is, wherever it is, whomever it affects, no matter how big it is, let's hold that in our heart for just a moment. And let's send love and peace and prayers for healing. Finally, friends, as we draw our time to a close, as we send prayers and intentions of love and healing, let's offer one last moment to listen for actions of love that we ourselves can take on behalf of those for which we've just prayed. What are actions that we can take? And close our time by praying, God of love, please help us to give our love and our prayer hands and feet that work for healing in the world. In Christ's name and all the holy names of God, amen. Thanks, friends, for joining us today.